Does anybody else have any other questions for him on this part? Seeing none?
Okay.
The next one?
Okay, the next one, see that one, medical examiner, that's been completed already. The following initiative, the improved use of Citrix in more cloud services. So it's nice. This is kind of happening organically. Departments are starting to reach out to me and say, hey, I hear we have this. Can we use it? Yes, let's get going. So we've already started various departments on some of the cloud services, and that's going to be a multi-year initiative. We're going to keep pushing that, keep using those services that we're paying for.
Okay.
So that's going well.
Any questions on that, guys?
Just on the cloud, is there any security issues that we need to worry about? Is putting it out there on the cloud in another entity or anything like that?
I would say it's the same risk as if it was here. So Microsoft's probably security budget's a lot larger than Washington County's. We're also in what's called a government cloud tenant. So everything in that cloud is secured above and beyond what they do for normal commercial accounts. And that's just to meet the requirements of like CJIS data, HIPAA data. So there's always security controls around that. And then we also put on top of that, we also layer like two-factor authentication and other mechanisms to help secure that.
Awesome. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Let's see here. The advancing applications, right now I think those are all completed. Our major one was the Tyler Munis, which is almost like our enterprise resource planning software, ERP software. That was upgraded this year. That's all of our general ledger accounting software that was upgraded. That was a huge project, as well as the medical records program for the Human Services Department. Mm-hmm. That was kind of re-implemented this year as well. So those are done.
Any questions on that? Seeing none?
On the initiative enhancements to IT infrastructure, you can see that 3 of those are already completed. Now the next one that we are working on is upgrading the network switches in the sheriff's office. So we do have a plan to get those going. We do have the physical equipment here, so now it's just a matter of configuration, working with the sheriff departments on a good time to put the equipment in the closets and transfer them over.
In pulling the old system down, is there any concern about what do those switches control? Is it radios? What does it control? As far as pulling it down to replace it, are the sheriff radios going to go down? You know what I mean? This is just a concern.
Sure.
Just a question.
Great question. Mm-hmm. So these switches, it has nothing to do with the radios. The radios is a separate system all of itself. These are basically connecting end users to the network. Okay. So you do have some people that access, controls and the doors and stuff like that. So we do strategically plan that, and there are alternate methods for that. These swaps usually take 15 to 20 minutes, so it's very minimal.
Power it down, plug it in, power it back up.
Right.
Make sure it's working.
Yeah, and we'll make sure the sheriff has their means to control that area. And it's not like we do the whole sheriff's office at once. We'll do a little area at a time.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great question.
Is that for that one?
That's it for that one? Yep.
Okay. Enhancements of IT cybersecurity.
Okay.
That's a mouthful.
Enhancements to IT, yep. So, as you guys were aware, was it last week? Yes, last week we went over the security audit. So that was one of our big items this year is to get through that audit, and that's actually an annual audit that we do, multi-day. We are continuing to go through some of the findings of that audit to determine feasibility, as well as tackle the easy things that we can do, upgrading systems, patching, stuff like that. So that has been completed. We did post the security position, and I'm hoping to get that position hired sooner than later. And then I really would like that position to actually build out our vulnerability management solution. Right now, we haven't had enough time because of every other project that's going on. So it'd be really nice to get that dedicated to this project here. And it's not to say that we don't have it started. It's been started, but to really fine tune it and really customize it the way we want. That is it for pretty much the IT security.
Any questions on that? None? Okay. Shared services.
IT shared services. Right now, we are currently looking, and you'll see it later on your agenda for tonight, to approach IT shared services for the town of Erin. We have started on the town of West Bend, as that was approved last month by the board, and I thank you for that. So we're starting to get equipment in for the town of West Bend. We started to get their Microsoft service agreements in place. So now it's just a matter of deploying the stuff, getting them set up, and then we'll start, taking on the support calls from the town of West Bend. And then town of Erin will be presented. We are also looking at feasibility for the village of Germantown. I'm gathering a lot of information from them. So they have a lot of data from their current service provider that's given me really good insight into their network. So it's giving me network maps, server diagrams, how many support tickets they put in on a monthly basis. So I'm gathering all that information, and then that will help determine what kind of staffing is going to need to take on that village for shared services. So that's pretty much it for shared services.
Just a quick question I have. So obviously the village of Newburgh, Kewaskum, Madison are done. Any feedback? Are things working well for them? Or do they like this service? Or
I've had great feedback, especially from. I talk a lot with the town of Kewaskum. Every time I see Mr. Gitter around,
Sure,
he provides a lot of great feedback. They're very pleased with us. I did just conduct semi-annual reviews with each of the Newburgh, the Kewaskum, and Addison. Very basically, I go in there, I say, hey, this is how the service has looked for the last month. This is our proof that we're patching systems. And I got nothing but positive feedback. They love the team that we have here.
okay,
And it's just minor stuff we're taking on right now. Hey, this application stopped working here. Or, hey, we're getting ready to move back to a building, so we need some information on how we want to design this. User accounts, we have new users, people leave, stuff like that to maintain it. So far, it's from my aspect, it's going pretty well.
okay, awesome.
Nothing major happened in any of those. Was a challenge?
I wouldn't say a challenge, no. I mean, anytime we bring on a new municipality, we do put a lot of upfront time to that. So I would say as we're bringing these municipalities on, it is very time intensive upfront. And other than the CrowdStrike issue that the worldwide faced, that was kind of the only major issue we've had so far.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none? Looks like that's it for you then.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Transit quarterly report.
If it's all right, I'll tee these up, and Charlie, our transit manager, is certainly here as well. You'll notice that both of these are a little bit different than what Joel just went through, and they're both in draft format, which means that they're not really all the way mapped out yet. So let's really get some of your feedback on them today, and then we would map out the dates and stuff like that a little more clearly as we move forward. So we have two draft ones in there as we're looking for it. The first one is transit options. And what we're looking at is that in the year 2026, I don't get too far in the weeds, our funding source goes from simplistically from the federal government down to the state government, which makes it a lot easier. Same thing is being said for the city of Hartford and the city of West Bend with their transit services. Several years back, we tried to work together to have a transit coordinator potentially in the county for all three systems. It didn't work out. I think now with all the other shared services that we're doing and the more willingness to partner on things, we'd like to maybe kick the tires on that one more time to see if there's some cost savings that can be realized between the three municipalities that do provide transit services in Washington County. And so for that, we'd like your blessings today, or your questions or comments on this, and we'll obviously be bringing this back quarterly. The next time a little more maybe built out, but just want to give you kind of a rough outline of what is out there right now. But that's what we're looking at. We're going through different things. We went through the adding the advertisement to the sign to look for funding. Obviously, budget's coming just around the corner. They're several months away, so it might be something we look at next year for part of the budget cycle going forward for 26 and 27 budget.
Okay.
We'd be happy to answer any questions. We don't have a lot of data on it yet, but it's something we'd certainly looking at pursuing.
Without data, it's kind of hard to come up with questions, though.
I know. I apologize to have a little more built out, but basically, what we're looking at is looking at our current structure, and is there a way to make that different, to make it actually better for the citizens of Washington County? Anything we do, of course, as you've seen with all the shared services later on tonight, everything comes back to the committee and then full board. So it's not like we're going to go behind the scenes and merge with the city of Hartford, for instance, without your full involvement in that system. But what it does is allows us to say that, yeah, we'd like to look at our structure again and see if there's a way to make it more streamlined for the citizens of Washington County, or we like the way things are going right now. We got, the Commuter Express is gone, and let's just stay with this. Now we're a lot more alike now than other communities because we all three just have a shared ride taxi system, and once we're all in the same funding, we're even more alike.
We don't know what where you're going with this.
Yeah.
But when you say shared services, are you looking at doing some kind of shared thing with like the city of West Bend or the city of Hartford, who already has taxi? And somehow
it
we
would probably be
combine?
more on the management side of it.
Oh,
is
gotcha.
Where we got this one set up for you right now.
Okay.
That's why the first one, possible operation structure.
Right.
That's how we kind of get that written out. And then if we change that operation structure, whatever that looks like, if they want to partner with us, partner with them, then obviously then after that, you got to change your policies and procedures potentially. And then obviously make sure that everybody's aware of it.
I'm always open to find savings, right? Better ways to do things.
We tried valiantly for years with Ozaukee County, and we actually were able to get a partnership for a while, and then that was broken. And so we certainly, like I said, try with the renewed interest with local municipalities working with the county.
Sure.
I think it'd be worthwhile just to have that conversation again. It might be a short conversation, but at least want to make sure that you're hearing it first through us versus the back channels going, hey, did you know the county's contacting us for this or that?
They seem to be open with all the other shared services, so why not this one as well, right?
Right.
Anybody else have any questions regarding this?
I just have one. Do you see the ridership going up higher? Like I see it's like in the high 4,000. You think towards the end of the year it will even go into the 5s?
I don't know. I don't know when people are out there who needs a ride and when they need them. We're hoping that keeps rising up. We're doing some more advertising, but you just never know. We can't make people ride the service, but I think having it out there and available is important to the public.
Okay.
So Scott, I think maybe a road Bob was going down. When you look at this, like the riders, it's an odd arc. Like 2019, because COVID is this anomalous, circumstance. But 2019, you look at the numbers and you track them to 2023, and 2023 is slightly up. And you look at how down 22 is and how down 24 is. It's a very odd, like there's no real pattern. You know what I mean?
That's what's hard to predict the future when you don't see a pattern. If I saw a pattern with a nice line, I could tell you,
And
we're
it's
going
not a
one
small
way.
number. It's like I said, it's like 22%. And it's just when I look at this, and this is obviously my first time on this committee. Boy, if you were running a business, I agree with you. So you have to do something. It's just really curious. That is a really random pattern. That's hard to figure. You know what I mean?
And that's one thing we're looking at, with this as well, is looking at when our ridership is and when we have the buses, on the road, and should we be looking at the hours of operation and saying, well, should we really stay open that late or get open that early, Saturdays and Sundays and stuff. So, correct. Right. So that's what we're kind of looking at. That will be part of this conversation as well. Would be, when we look at our own service internally, what should we be doing? And should we make some changes to them? We buy basically a block of hours from the company, 58,000 hours a year, and they're supposed to help us decide when those hours are utilized best. And so that's part of this one as well, would be when should we have those buses on the roadway? And small changes, the committee can do themselves. Larger changes, would have to go through a public hearing. So, for instance, you wanted to end Saturday and Sunday, that's pretty large change. You want to stop 2 hours earlier, that could probably, we'd work with our county attorney to determine what's a large change and what's minor, but generally speaking, those are the type of things we would discuss with the committee.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, we look forward to hearing your ideas.
Yep, we'll bring some more data into that and
Sure.
some more verbiage for you. The next one is pilot fleet management. Charlie's true title as fleet manager and transit manager. We brought him in to actually specifically look at our fleet going forward. And when I say the fleet, not specifically talking about the highway fleet or the sheriff's fleet, but kind of the fleet in general at the county, and seeing what everybody does. Believe it or not, the Parks Department does one thing with their fleet, the highway does another thing with their fleet, the sheriff does another thing with their fleet, Human Services does another thing with their fleet, Facilities does, IT has a vehicle, county executive has a vehicle. Just as simple as how are we accomplishing all these oil changes? How are we doing to make sure the tire rotations are done? How are we making sure we're getting the best bang for our buck when we're retiring a vehicle? Something as simple as budget of when Facilities buys a vehicle, it hits their budget that year. And so one budget year's up because they're buying a vehicle, and vehicles are much more expensive than they were, 5, 10 years ago. And then now their budget's back down, and then their budget spikes. And how can we actually make that more, I'll call it more like a lease. I don't want to use the word lease, but more like renting or having a central fleet. They actually use the vehicle so that their budgets for all different departments are more level through the years going forward versus a big expense, low expense, or unexpected expenses going forward. So one thing we're looking at is internal service fund, they call it. Basically, all the vehicles are in this fund, and when they use the vehicle based on mileage, hours, whatever it is, they pay a certain rental rate back in, and that helps pay for the mechanics and the oil changes and the tires and eventually the depreciation, a new building, all that kind of stuff. So it's not set up yet. We haven't started anything, but we've had some conversation with other counties who've done this before and see what that looks like and saying, yeah, it is something that is definitely feasible and might help our whole budgeting process too going forward. As you might know, the Sheriff's Department is looking at bringing in a lot more squads with the take home of the vehicles and bringing on more vehicles. They have a relatively small shop, and what does that look like going forward? Can they sustain a one-person shop, or do they need something a little bit bigger? Can they work with the highway department or at the highway department? All that kind of stuff going forward, and who's actually doing the work on the vehicles, and how's that actually being tracked? Is it software, or like in the highway department, we still use paper cards, believe it or not, for every oil change and tire rotation. Not saying it's a horrible system, but it's a little antiquated. So that's what this one is about, is fleet management, and obviously decision points along the way will come back to the committee. We're not going to create an internal service fund without your approval, and we might even need the full board's approval on that as well. So, but just really we had to get a more handle on our fleet and how we're managing that countywide.
Would that just be for your vehicles or for all of the?
We would start slowly and take on some of the like ITs, the county executive, human services vehicles. Start with those vehicles first, the ones that are more of your one-off facilities vehicles, and then work our way through, work on the parks vehicles. It's more difficult when you start talking about equipment. Like an excavator is a lot different than a police vehicle even. Sure. So, and we certainly would have conversations with the sheriff, and the sheriff being elected official may elect to not join in or be part of it.
Interesting. Any other questions? Seeing none? Oh, go ahead.
Wait, on that one or on the second part of this, continue to investigate partnership with?
I think that's the next one, right?
Oh, yeah, okay. No, sorry. Proceed. Thank you.
Are you all done, Scott?
Yep, that's all I have on fleet.
So I did have a question on this.
Okay.
So on the second one, you said continue to investigate a partnership with Enterprise or another company. When you say Enterprise, do you mean Enterprise, the rental company?
Yes. Yeah. They have different programs that some communities use, some don't. Kind of like almost like a lease type vehicle. We've had conversation with them and our Parks Department specifically for several years now. Not saying we're going down that route, but just as an option as well.
Yeah, we use them. my company.
Okay.
So we use Enterprise. We have a mix of owned vehicles and leased vehicles.
Right.
And then they maintain our leased vehicles. And if you want to buy vehicles, you can put them on a credit card, which is actually pretty cool. So.
Right. There's a lot of different options and ways to go in certain vehicles they have and certain things they may not have, like I said, highway equipment, for instance, a little more challenging.
Yeah, right. Do they do that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, but other vehicles. Okay, sorry.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we will move on to transit ridership report, which I know Ken kind of alluded to already a little bit. You know, I guess looking at this, it does seem like the adults went up a bit, as did the elderly. So I don't know, when we had that rate increase at the beginning of the year, that seemed to drop, and we were afraid it would drop off. But so is that kind of what you're seeing? Are they coming back, or is it just an anomaly for a month, and we'll see what happens going forward?
It could be a seasonal shift, or it could be, I'd have to look at the data and see what the purposes are behind those trips.
Other than that, it did come up some again. I don't know if that's our wave of the future or what, right? Nobody has that crystal ball yet. So, any questions, guys, on the ridership data? Okay, well, that was easy. Did you have anything you wanted to add to it, or not really?
No, I just changed the format, so just kind of focus on the current trips by hour and day a week. Before it was the total trips of the year, but now I have the average trips by hour and day a week, so that's why it's a lot lower than the previous month.
Yes, the chart. Yep. Interesting. Appreciate it.
Yep. And the 0 at 9 p.m., it's like a point. It's a decimal, so it's rounded to 0, but it's a decimal. So it's not 0 trips at 9 o'clock.
Okay, it's rounded down.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Still no questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the resolution authorizing the Washington County Information Technology Department. I'll need a motion in a second. Motion from Supervisor Vispalik, second from Supervisor Hartwig.
All right. So
back.
going back to the fleet thing,
Yes.
IT is looking for like a cyber truck, so that's we'll keep that in mind.
What does a cyber truck look like? Are you talking like?
It kind of looks like this, to be exact. Anyways, all joking aside, we are looking at, as I alluded to earlier, providing the town of Erin IT shared services. I was out there a couple times, meeting with the clerk, and had a really good conversation. They are interested in what Washington County can help them. After looking at their environment, it's a very small environment, another town. Mm-hmm. We're looking at approximately, $12,625 in estimated support. And that's a number that's configured, comprised of my IT staff's salaries and benefits, working with the BPA department.
Sure.
That's what we came up with. So, essentially, I feel real comfortable at this time taking them on. I don't think it's going to impact our support level in any way. It's such a small shop, so.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Well, that was easy.
I like it. Thank you.
All right. Well, then all approved, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. You're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That's the last agenda item. So next meeting date will be Thursday, October 17th, 2024 at 3 o'clock. This meeting's over.